off to the space race in a new series over on Disney+, The Right Stuff. The 7th episode is now up and I just watched it, so stick with me and I'm gonna break it all down after the intro. Well, hello there! My name's Jeremy and welcome back to Freeform Disney, where I talk about all aspects of Disney, from the animated movies to the theme parks to Star Wars, Marvel, and Pixar, and the TV shows, and everything else in between. And that is why it's Freeform. And keep coming back every day for new daily content. If you're not subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Today we're continuing to look at the Disney drama series, The Right Stuff, the story of the Mercury 7 astronauts. This is the 7th and penultimate episode of Season 1, and it is called Ziggurat. Now, like a ziggurat, we're building up to the finale. And hey, without any further time to waste, let's just jump right on in, so here is what went down. We set up the episode by telling y'all, it's 1961, we just had the Bay of Pigs happen, which tells you that we just went through April, and we are getting ready for launch because now it is 2 weeks until launch. We get to see some messy flight simulation with Alan Shepard, and things with Scott Carpenter just are not going well with him running Capcom. So it's probably not going to go well for Scott later. But we'll have to jump back in on that later, because first we head off over to the Lovelace Clinic. Now that we finally bringing Jerry Cobb back in, although briefly, we see that she's testing better than anyone else has done on one of those tests that the astronauts all went through. So there's a little more touching on that. I don't know whether we'll really get to more in the finale or maybe in season 2. Not sure where we're going with that. But we do then cut off to Trudy and her daughter talking about that a little. And then we head off to the bar with Gordo and, well, some of those other astronauts. Plenty of sexism in there because we get to the topic of female astronauts. And Gordo does try to defend female astronauts a little bit in there. But don't worry, that's all going to go right out the window when he's in a press conference and actually being recorded by other people. Woohoo! After all, let's compare. Hey, we sent up a chimp, we might as well send up a lady. But space suits make you look plump, and we know ladies won't like that. Yeah. We never really see the aftermath in this episode between Gordo and Trudy at all. Just a phone call that never gets answered. I assume we're probably going to see a little more fallout drama of that in the finale. And like a lot of things in this episode, this feels like setup for some of that drama that will come next week. So until next week on this one, and we'll see where we go. Until then, again, yikes. Dang, man. So a little further on in, and now we have taken Scott Carpenter off of doing Capcom, and he is going to be flying Chase now at this point. Now in the show, he very much is not into that. As far as real life is concerned, it sounds like maybe it was actually his request, because similar to the show, he was not doing a great job with Capcom there. It just did not seem to be working right for him. Well, anyway, this leads to an interesting conversation between John Glenn and Scott Carpenter out there talking. And really, the two of them having to pick themselves back up. Scott Carpenter not being on Capcom, John Glenn not being, well, the first freaking astronaut. And, well, there is a point for John Glenn there. Yeah, not just his wife expecting that one. The whole freaking world's expecting him to be first. But, yeah, to the message in the character spots, time to get their heads up and act like the people they should be, as John says. And it's a nice piece to see a little camaraderie between some of the other astronauts in there. See John Glenn starting to finally come to terms with things, it seems. So it's a nice moment. And now we're off to the night before. We get to see Bob Gilruth in his room with tons of anticipation and nerves on the day before. And they're worried about big storms coming in. But hey, they're hoping they've got like a 30-minute window between storms. Yeah. That's not a lot to hope for right there. And then we get this interesting moment between Irene Carpenter and Louise Shepard upstairs over at the hotel. Now, Irene Carpenter, unsurprisingly, is not happy with Alan Shepard over the Capcom thing and getting Scott Carpenter off of doing Capcom. And, well, that kind of leads to her dropping her own bomb in there, too, because Louise is kind of acting all high and mighty, so it's time to take her down a peg. So, yeah, your husband's leaving things out, too. You heard about the tart down in Tijuana? Yeah, and no, she hadn't. That won't blow up till a little bit later, though. Well, later we get to go ahead and see John Glenn and Alan Shepard off into the van to go head on off and get ready. Luis and Trudy are back behind watching. That's a little nice between the two of them. And we get to montage a little more here. We get to see Shorty talking about the epitaph if he were to die. Worries playing through Al's head about his hearing, but he seems to be okay. We get to see that beginning scene from the show back from the very first episode, although really just a piece of it. We don't go and repeat the whole thing. And then we see a bunch of final prep pieces. We see Alan Shepard going through his physical checkup, talking to a psychologist. Meanwhile, John Glenn just has to wait in the hall and wait to be told that Alan passed his physical. And hey, once he does, hey, you're done for now, John. Good job, backup astronaut. Oh, that doesn't grate on your mind just a little bit to have to be sitting there, right? Oh, fun little moment. Watching Alan put on the spacesuit, like fully put it on, that was a fun moment. I liked that. We've seen them in the spacesuits before, but never actually suiting up. So that was cool. Oh, and also we do get to see Mission Control doing their prep stuff too. Can't leave that out of our montage sequence. And it's not really a true montage. It's too long to be what would normally be a montage in that sense, but it's the same kind of idea. And then we get this nice moment between Bob Gilruth and Chris Kraft, and they're just talking their last pieces before the next day. First piece, what idiot decided to put this outfit in Florida, considering the weather and the storms? And they have this talk about oranges, back to how they're delicate and a frost can kill the whole crop. How you have that worry that if things really went bad and you actually killed an astronaut, that's probably way worse than having, played it safe. And just waiting a couple of days, putting off the flight and trying it again later. But hey, you never know if you get it right if you play it safe, right? Well, let's be honest, we play it safe quite a fair bit, too, for good reason. And we're in our final spots to make it look like this is actually going to happen. We get Alan flashing back to different parts of the season, seeing the build up until this point. And no. The mission gets scrubbed. That weather was tricky right there that day. It's not really a surprise that you end up scrubbing it considering. And by the way, if you knew what day it actually was, you'd know it was going to get scrubbed anyway, because this was the May 2nd first attempt at the launch. Which, yes, according to real history, means, it gets scrubbed. But don't worry, set up for the finale right there. Just 3 more days to go. May 5th right there. May 5th, 1961. So we're getting close. Oh, by the way, it gets out. The press in the world now knows that Alan Shepard is the first astronaut. Now, in this case, we made it like an accident, like the press somehow was able to get in there and see Alan Shepard in the flight suit. As opposed to NASA actually just having announced it to everybody after the fact. But regardless, the point being is it amounts to the same. It's going to create some drama to be sure for everyone to know and for the secret to be out. We get to hear Loden Wainwright talk over to John about how he thinks it should have been him. And, well, that's really about all the drama here, but my guess is there will be more of that drama about that being public come next week's episode. Again, I think this is another setup piece for really going there, as we didn't really get a lot of payoff here in this episode. Okay, so there's 2 more good things really going on in here. We have a piece where we come on in and we see a number of the doctors and also our nurse going ahead and drinking and singing with Al Shepard. And actually, it's just an interesting, fun little moment. We don't really get to see much out of the medical staff, but we do get to see them here, and so that's cool. And then Luis comes in, and we are talking just between her and Al. Because now we get that fallout from earlier about her finding out about the whole Tijuana thing. And yeah, it's not happy. You know, what if our girls had seen that? Now you're worried about how things look. Right. And so she ain't smiling through everything. She's going back home. Yep, we're definitely going to see more on that next week. No way that doesn't come back in. Again, it was a little bit of fallout. But one thing that really did get at least a good bit of payoff here, and probably the best scene of the episode, by a good ways to be honest, was the last piece. Al and John end up heading up to the rooftop, because they're not on good terms, but John follows them up there. And so they're talking. John really seems like he's trying to be some good emotional support for Alan. And I'll say, bud, you ain't doing a great job, and you ain't reading the situation well. Well, it does seem that he means well, at least. And then the letters come up. And oh yeah, it breaks out a little bit more. Yeah. You had to make sure everyone knew. Miserable, sanctimonious ass is what you are, John. But hey, people want to be me. Oh, what fun. Yeah. Well, anyway, this whole thing keeps building up because Alan is convinced that John just wants to hurt him because he thinks that all that matters to John is being first. Now, there might be a little bit of seeing what's in his own head and other people right there. And so, yeah, he ends up backing himself up to the edge of the rooftop and just standing there. John, a little worried about where the hell that one's headed. And essentially, John finally tries to de-escalate things a little. And maybe develops a little too, with his comment that I can find love for you in my heart, Al. I want you to know that. And he slowly backs off. Yeah, that got really tense right there. And it was a good bit of character moment between the two. Some good acting in there too. Definitely enjoyed that. And it'll be interesting to see where those characters go in the finale as well. Now, that was it. That was the episode right there. I've got to say this, and I'm sad to say it, but I think this was one of the weakest episodes of the season. And that's not because I disliked the plots that were used or the stories for the characters. It's that this episode felt mostly like a lot of fluff. Essentially, I guess what I mean is that its main purpose was to be set up for the finale next week. That also meant there was a lot of preparation, montages, flashbacks, etc. And so there just didn't feel like a lot was really going on this episode. And even things that developed really, again, they felt like they developed a little and they were mainly setting up things for next week still. So yeah, that's really where my problems come with this. Now that said, don't get me wrong, there certainly were good moments in here, especially that last scene. They just got drowned in an episode that otherwise didn't have enough to actually hold them up. And maybe ironically here, this actually makes me much more excited for next week. So next week is the season finale, and with how much this episode was recap and setup and whatnot, I'm actually hoping that leads to a really good finale, as it won't feel the need to spend all its time on those things. So we can shed the fat and really just get to the meat of the next episode and really spend our time that way in the finale. We're finally going to see Shepard become the first American in space. So here is hoping for a strong finish to the season next week. And well, what about you? Did you like this episode more than I did, or did you feel like setup for you too? And hey, you looking forward to the finale next week? Let me know down below in the comments. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, help me out and give it a like, a share, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done it already. I'll see you back here tomorrow for another new episode of Freeform Disney. Have a magical day, and may the Force be with you. Always.